Welcome to the Genealogy Gems podcast. It's a show filled with family history, research, strategies and techniques, news and entertainment, and inspiration. And I'm your host, Louise Cooke. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Genealogy Gems podcast episode number 192. Well, it is finally summer here in the U.S. Here in Texas, we have been bogged down with a lot of flash flooding and really unusual amounts of rain, but the sun is shining and oh, wow, do I feel good. I hope you are doing great too. And of course, summertime here, of course, means time for family picnics and reunions and road trips and all kinds of events where you'll be making lots of memories and taking lots of pictures. I've been having a blast this week because I've been getting daily texts of my fabulous grandsons out at Legoland. They've been having a blast out there. They are huge. I mean, I can't even overstate it. Huge Lego fans. And it's so funny to see the pictures coming through on text from their mom with their eyes just big as saucers that they are in a real live Legoland where it all comes to life. So they're having a blast. And that is the fun of summertime. And of course, our ancestors had a lot of fun in the summer and took lots of photos. Well, today I'm going to share a favorite new tool for compiling and sharing those photographs. An online service that makes it so easy to create professional looking videos and slideshows that you can share on social media or at family gatherings like family reunions. I've actually been looking for reasons to create new videos with it lately because it's so easy and the results look fantastic that they just absolutely are thrilling. So it does just become a little bit addictive. So I'll be sharing this video creation tool with you a little bit later in the episode. But there's a lot more packed in today's show. I'm really excited to introduce you to the newest member of the Genealogy Gems team, Amie Tennant. She has already started contributing to the Gems blog. You've probably seen her smiling face at the bottom of some of those blog posts. And today you're not only going to meet her, but she's going to be sharing some insights that she's been learning as she prepares to become a certified genealogist. I've got two fun letters to share with you as well in the mailbox segment. One has a listener tip about a favorite genealogy database, and the other one comes from a Gems follower who has been researching an adoptive ancestor's biological roots. And she found her DNA matches much closer to home than she expected. You'll also hear an excerpt from the Genealogy Gems Book Club interview with Helen Simonson on her book, The Summer Before the War. It's a quick and enjoyable summer read, and the conversation that she had with contributing editor Sunny Morton is absolutely delightful. I know you'll enjoy it. So let's get started with a few news briefs. So you've heard me talk about using Dropbox for genealogy in the past. It's one of my favorite free tools for collaborating with fellow researchers and certainly to juggle all of the files that we create here at Genealogy Gems. In fact, I am now a premium user of Dropbox because I really needed the extra storage. And it's been fabulous. It works great. Well, I recently got an email that Dropbox has done kind of a nice little update. When you share Dropbox content with somebody, let's say that you're collaborating with a cousin on your family history, you can send them a link, right, to a file item or a folder. Well, in the past, if you reorganized your Dropbox folders or the items that are inside of them, like you decided to group all of your ancestors' digitized photos into a single folder instead of where you had them in surname folders, if you move things around, the links that you sent people before wouldn't work anymore. And that was a pain. Well, now shared links will stay active even if you move or rename the file or folder. So you don't have to worry about that happening. And here's another tip on file sharing. If you ever want to unshare something that you've already sent out to somebody, so that would be like removing access to a sensitive document. Maybe you just wanted to share it for a particular length of time, but then you want to pull it back and not have it out there and available, it's really easy to disable an active link. All you have to do is sign into Dropbox.com, into your account, click the link icon next to the file or the folder. Now, this is in your web browser. When you go to Dropbox.com, you're going to be doing, it's easier to deal with these shared files in a web browser versus in the app. So that's what I'm referring to, is going to Dropbox.com in your web browser, signing in with your account, and clicking the link icon next to the file or the folder, and then click Remove Link in the top right corner of the box that appears. And you can also remove the link by visiting Dropbox.com/links. And then you can just click the X next to the file or the folder. So nice little updates to make things a little quicker and more efficient as you're working with your files and folders in Dropbox. And I like when things are more efficient because we want to spend more time doing genealogy, right? Well, recently I blogged about how to share folders on Dropbox, so I will have a link in the show notes for you for step-by-step instructions on how to do that. My next item here, let's see here. MyHeritage recently announced a new project. It's called Tribal Quest, and they're recording and preserving the family histories of tribal people living in remote locations around the world. So their first project is in Namibia, and then they plan to move on to New Guinea. They're actually even recruiting volunteers who want to travel to these places and help out. Wouldn't that be amazing? So you can learn more about it at tribalquest.org. Family Search volunteers have been doing projects like this for quite a while. And an article was published a few years ago about their work in several countries in Africa where there's a really strong oral history tradition. And here's a really interesting quote from that article. It says, "Most African tribes have a designated storyteller who's responsible to memorize the tribe's oral traditions, including names of ancestors going back 6 to 30 generations. Family Search works with chiefs and local volunteers to visit these storytellers and record the information that they've been charged to remember in their heads. Sometimes the interview is audio or video recorded, like the Ghana Oral Genealogy Project, and I'll have a link to that in the show notes for you. If technology is not available, the information is written down on paper. Once it's recorded, the lineage-linked data is put into a spreadsheet and uploaded to FamilySearch.org. Isn't that amazing? Can you imagine being able to regurgitate 30 generations of ancestors' names in the right order, right? And I've noticed that there has been a lot of African records coming online at Family Search lately. It's fascinating and really to peek behind the scenes to see how family history websites and organizations just go the extra mile and sometimes thousands of miles to document the world's family history. And here's a final piece of news today, and it's news from the Genealogy Gems world. A new premium video is available to all of you with Genealogy Gems Premium membership. And of course, you can learn more about that. Just click Premium on the homepage at genealogygems.com. The new video, it's called Getting Started in Genetic Genealogy, and it is by our resident DNA expert, Diane Southard. And if you're new to DNA testing for family history, or if you wish that you knew how to get more out of your test results, this video is really a must-see. And in her so easy to understand style, Diane just walks through 3 key questions. Which test should I take? What will I get from the testing? And the all-important, will it help? Are these questions on your mind too about DNA? Probably so. Diane reminds us that genetic genealogy is not about miracles, but it's also not just about lucking into a great match. There's a lot that we can do to make our DNA testing experience a more powerful research tool. I specifically like her explanation of why she gives a 5-star rating to Y-DNA, but only a 3-star rating to mitochondrial DNA. So you will have to watch the video to learn more about that. And in the show notes, I will share a quick preview of this exciting class if you haven't seen it yet. It's just one more reason to consider Genealogy Gems Premium website membership if you haven't joined us yet. Diane's video is just one of 30 video classes that are part of the membership that our premium members can access on demand all year long when it's convenient for you. And membership also includes our entire Genealogy Gems premium podcast series. And that is separate from this free show and exclusive. It's just like this one, but it's got even more great ideas and content. And gosh, there's over 130 episodes that's already in the archive. So you get access to all of that when you are a premium member. And of course, all the show notes and all the goodies that go along with it. And the premium podcast just gives you more of what I love about this podcast. We go even deeper into genealogy research tips, technologies, and stories. And that's where you're going to hear those full-length interviews that we do with the Genealogy Gems Book Club authors. What you'll hear later in this episode is just kind of a snippet of one of those. And I hear from so many people how much they really enjoy the book club interviews, really, whether they've had time to read the book or not. Because our authors are always really insightful and share their personal experience and their own research as well. So if you're not a premium member yet, maybe it's time to think about it. We have got a lot of great stuff for you, and it's a great way to stay motivated and really keep adding to your genealogy education through all of those class videos. So we'll have a link in the show notes, or you can just go to genealogygems.com and click premium. All right, well, next up, we are going to talk to you, hear your questions, your stories, and we will do that in the mailbox.
Bring me a letter from my old hometown, one with some jokes from my old pal Jim Brown. Bring me a letter from that girl of mine, saying that she's longing for me all the time. Bring me a letter from my proud old dad, who knows that we are winning, and I bet he's glad. But more than any other, a line from my old mother. Bring me a letter from my hometown.
Not long ago, I got an email from Russ, who blogs about his family history at worthy2be, and it's the number 2, .wordpress.com. And Russ wrote the following, and I quote, I was listening to podcast 181, in which you were talking about where do we search while we are waiting for the 1950 census. And you mentioned city directories. I really like them and actually have a presentation on my use of city directories. But I recently discovered a wonderful resource on Ancestry.com that I've used along with city directories, and there appear to be more records a-comin' online now. The name of the record group doesn't sound interesting, but it can be a gem for you. The record set that Russ is recommending is called the U.S. Public Record Index, 1950 through 1993, Volume 1 and Volume 2. And Russ says, Volume 1 is far more interesting with more data. A search will return a name and birth date, along with more than one address, zip code, and sometimes phone numbers. And Russ very kindly sent me Ancestry's description of its online database for Volume 1, which says that the original data comes from public records spanning all 50 states, such as voter registration lists, public record filings, historical residential records, and other household database listings. And then he shared the following example of using the U.S. Public Records Index to find recent relatives that he can't look up yet in the 1950 census. So he says, quote, I had a hint for a cousin in a yearbook, and I know that she recently lived in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I didn't know where she went to college, and I know her birthday. The name is not unique, also not common. At the same time, I had the hint for the Public Records Index. You know, those things we can't use in a proof argument, but there she was in Philadelphia. The yearbook had her picture and only her name, not spelled the way I know it, but the Public Records Index puts her in Philadelphia at the right time and place. I've seen 2 or 3 databases for folks in the 1980s and 1990s in these indexes. Not all addresses have dates, but some do, unquote. In fact, Russ says, I have one cousin with 5 addresses since 1983, and he won't be in a census until the 1960 census records are released. And he concludes by saying, thank you for all of your gems. Well, thank you, Russ, because this is a great gem. Let's talk more about it. The U.S. Public Records Index pops up in my search results sometimes too. Both Volume 1 and Volume 2 are searchable on Ancestry.com, as Russ says, in separate databases. Each has over 400,000 records in it. There's also a free partial version of this database for 1970 through 2009 over at FamilySearch.org. And there's even a third version of it over at MyHeritage with 816 million records, nearly the same time frame. The Family Search database says that its data comes from, quote, telephone directories, property tax assessments, credit applications, and other records available to the public, unquote. So I'll link to these databases as I do for all the resources that we mention here on the show. This is episode 192, and that will be in the show notes. So you just go to genealogygems.com, hover your mouse over podcast, click on Genealogy Gems Podcast, and you're going to click on episode 192. If you have the app, of course, the show notes are right there in the app for you as well. And I want to thank Russ for the email and for sharing his experience with the Public Records Index. And here are some things I think are worth mentioning about the Public Records Index. And some of these points come from the terrific Family Search Wiki. First, not everyone who lived in the U.S. appears in the index, and you're more likely to find birth information for those born between 1900 and 1990. What you'll find is primarily where someone lived and often when they lived there. Second, it's rarely possible to positively identify a relative in this index, since there's limited information and it spans the entire country for up to half a century. And you can't follow up on the record it comes from because the index doesn't say where individual records come from. So as Russ says, this is a great resource to use in combination with other records. It's a similar concept to the way you might consult unsighted family trees, right? Great hints to go on, but then follow up with further research into verifiable and hopefully primary sources. Third, when you find more recent listings, you can sometimes find telephone numbers for living distant relatives. And in the show notes for this episode, I'm going to link to a free 2-episode series. It comes from the Family History Genealogy Made Easy podcast, in which I chat with an expert, my cousin, Carolyn Ender. She is an expert on cold calling techniques for reaching out to distant relatives that you don't know. So check that out in the show notes. And thanks again, Russ, for that email and for shining a spotlight on that gem of a database, the U.S. Public Records Index. Next item here is from Katie on cold calling and adoption and DNA. So speaking of making cold calls to relatives, here's an email from Katie who describes herself as a 30-year-old project manager living in Pacifica, California. And she's been listening to that Family History Genealogy Made Easy podcast that I just mentioned, that's also on our website and, of course, in iTunes. She says, a couple of weeks ago, I found the phone number of a cousin who most likely had no idea who I was. I was desperate to talk to him, but I was feeling shy and worried about whether I was going too far. Wouldn't you know it? Your episode on cold calling relatives popped up just a few days later. It was just what I needed to hear. I worked up the bravery when I remembered that even Carolyn, the woman that you interviewed, mentioned being shy and thought, what's the worst thing that could happen? And so I called. We talked for nearly an hour. He was so nice and receptive, spilling out information I hadn't even thought to ask about. Thank you so much for that encouraging gem. Well, that is a great testimonial, but Katie also has another story that's even better. Okay, she got permission from her relatives to tell this story and share pictures, which you will find in the show notes. You got to go look at those. Here's what she says. My grandfather's story was quite a genealogy researcher's dream adventure. I hope you don't mind me sharing, but I think you'll enjoy this story. When I set out on this genie journey, my goal was to find my grandfather's birth parents. He was adopted. But as I read all the old family letters and newspaper clippings, I found myself getting so attached to his adoptive family. I was saddened that we weren't blood relatives because I felt so connected and proud of them. My mother and I decided to take the Ancestry DNA test. That's the autosomal test, right? Not sure what we would find. When we got the results back, the strangest thing happened. My closest DNA match with a family tree was a descendant of my grandfather's adoptive family. My other closest match was adopted. He had been searching for his birth parents since the 1970s. When I called my adopted match, I think we were both excited and confused, not really sure how we'd be able to help each other in our search. As we compared our notes, everything started clicking together. He began to cry. This mystery cousin of mine was no cousin at all. He was my grandfather's half-brother. He was my great-uncle. My grandfather, Joseph, turned out to be the biological nephew of his adoptive mother, Angela. His birth father was Angela's brother, Paul. Angela's own son tragically died of a ruptured appendix at the age of 4. Her husband, Ralph, was a merchant ship captain who traveled regularly all over the world, but most commonly between Oakland, California, and Brooklyn, New York. According to family lore, less than a year after their son's passing, Ralph mysteriously brought a freckly little boy, my grandpa, home to Oakland with him from Brooklyn, shocking his wife with this child she was suddenly expected to raise. Can you imagine that boat ride all the way through the Panama Canal as a confused orphan? And the family rumors that started. Using DNA, we were able to put those rumors to rest. I'm not sure if Angela ever learned the truth. I'm not sure what Ralph told her, whether she even knows she was raising her own brother's boy. All those years, Grandpa never asked who his birth parents were because he was afraid of hurting the family's feelings, and little did he know he was being raised by his aunt the whole time. He probably met or at least wrote to his father without even knowing it. I have now met my great half-uncle, whose adoptive name is Bill, born Paul in honor of his deceased birth father. He lives in New York, and I've met his son, Tom. At 69 years old, that was his first time meeting a blood relative. I also connected with 2 living cousins in their 90s, thanks to their very sweet children and nieces. I had a photo of them from 1935 standing with my grandfather when he was only 4 years old, having no idea who they were until I started doing research. I couldn't believe they were still around. I was able to meet them last year. I was also able to provide them with the photos of their father, as they had only a few of their own. I now send regular emails to the whole reunited family to update them on my genealogy discoveries. I went on a homage journey to Prince Edward Island, the place my adoptive and birth great-grandparents grew up, and was able to lay flowers at the gravestone of our long-lost family members. The house they grew up in was still standing, still being lived in even. It was such an amazing discovery after feeling so mysteriously close to that family, to know that it wasn't all in my head, and to find out I had an uncle still living. Amazing. I agree with Katie. Amazing. Katie blogs her family history adventure at McKinnon Ancestry, and I'll have a link to her blog in the show notes for you, along with a link to a Genealogy Gems blog post and this story with several pictures if you'd like to meet this family that Katie's been meeting. Katie, thank you so much for sharing your story with us. Great inspiration.
Letter from my proud old dad, who knows that we are winning, and I'll bet he's glad. For love more than any other, a line from my old mother. Bring me a letter from my hometown.
I'm a firm believer in taking responsibility for the life and the future of my genealogy data. So instead of only uploading my information to somebody else's genealogy website, I enter it into my own master database that's on my own computer into the premier genealogy software program. It's Roots Magic at rootsmagic.com. Genealogy software is Roots Magic's primary focus. It's not just a sideline with them. And I continue to be really impressed by their free online training videos and all the rich features that they continue to add. And here's the latest. Not only can you import a GEDCOM file from another program, but now with the release of Roots Magic 7.1, you can directly import any Family Tree Maker file with everything attached. In fact, Roots Magic can import a bigger variety of older Family Tree Maker files than any single version of Family Tree Maker itself. It's just one way that Roots Magic has been reaching out into the genealogy community, helping them care for their most precious data, their family tree. And there's even more to look forward to this year, as Roots Magic has announced an agreement with Ancestry and will soon be able to synchronize your family tree with Ancestry the same way that Family Tree Maker did. There's never been a better time to switch to Roots Magic. Head to rootsmagic.com and download the free Roots Magic Essentials today. You know, now that I've moved to Texas and what they lovingly call Tornado Alley, I'm more aware than ever that if anything ever happened to my genealogy files, I would be devastated. And boy, have my files expanded since I started this research at the ripe old age of 8 years old. As genealogists, we don't just have paper files anymore, but we also have digital files like our genealogy database and precious old photos that we've spent hours scanning. No matter where we upload our family tree or anything else relating to our family history on the web, the responsibility for the total safety and security of our files lies with us. That's why I'm so proud to announce that Backblaze is now the official backup of Lisa Louise Cooke and Genealogy Gems. For the past few years, I've been researching and I've been test driving backup services, and hands down, Backblaze is my choice. It's certainly the easiest service to use, and I love their free app that allows me to access all my files on my smartphone and my tablet. Plus, it backs up everything, including my video files. Yikes, I didn't realize before looking at Backblaze that other services skip over backing up videos. So don't wait another day to ensure that all your files are safe and secure. Back them up like I do with Backblaze. Head to backblaze.com/Lisa and scroll down. You'll see my smiling face there and a great offer. Just $50 for a year's peace of mind and the best cloud backup around. Go to backblaze.com/Lisa. Well, we've been growing quite a bit here at Genealogy Gems lately, and it's a very exciting time. It's wonderful to have more wonderful, talented people to bring on board, to hopefully bring you more of those sparkling gems that we always are in search of. And I have found a wonderful gem myself to bring to the team to kind of help mine these for you and bring them to you here on the podcast and on the blog. And her name is Amie Tennant. And I want to just first welcome you to the show, Amie.
Thank you, Lisa.
It's wonderful to have you here and to have you on the team. And I don't talk a lot usually on the podcast about kind of what goes into all of this production, but it's a lot of research. It's a lot of writing and rewriting and editing and audio editing. And, you know, a lot of things go into bringing it all together. And you caught my eye months ago with a blog post that you wrote about your grandma. And I think those of you listening might remember, you know, it was such a wonderful, funny blog post. And so I'll have a link in the show notes so people can go back and revisit.
I loved writing that. I really did. And I was just tickled that you wanted to read it on your podcast. And I was especially tickled when you added the sound effects. Oh, it just brought it to life for me. I loved it.
That's the fun of podcasting, right? Is we can enrich things with the sound, and your talent for the written word really popped off the page and certainly caught my attention. So I was really excited when you reached out before the Ohio Genealogical Society conference, and we got a chance to actually meet up there in person and spend some time together. And look where we are. Here you are.
I know, a very short time later.
You know, one of the things that we're trying to do here, obviously, is always be on the forefront of kind of what genealogists need and what's trending. And so having another talented writer on staff is really a wonderful way to help us be able to seize on those opportunities and keep bringing what we call the gems, the best of the best, to the show. And you're a busy lady because you're going to be working part-time. Just to tell you all, she's in Ohio, as is Sunny. So, gosh, there's more gems now in Ohio almost. No, there's more gems in Texas because Lacey and Vienna are in Texas. But we're building a sideline in Ohio.
A sideline, sideline business in Ohio. Yes.
Yeah, which is fabulous. So I know one of the things that you're very busy with is you're going for your certification, are you not?
I am, yes. My certification through the Board for Certification in Genealogist. So it's a really big goal, but it's one I've had for a while now and just plugging away.
So it's a credential that a lot of professionals get. And I think all of us, of course, want to do better research, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm really interested to know, and maybe we could talk for a few minutes and you could share some of your experiences. What are you learning that is taking your genealogy research to the next level?
There's loads of things I could share. And I think the biggest thing I've learned or relearned is what it means to do true exhaustive research. It's talked about, it's written about in all of the genealogy standards and so forth. But essentially, really, truly exhausting your research means you looked everywhere for everything that could possibly shed light on that research question. So, I could go on and on about wonderful things that I've learned and writing techniques and source citations and so forth. But I think my number one tidbit is that exhaustive research component, and that you really, really do have to look everywhere for everything because there's a lot out there. So I think that's my number one thing.
And really what's underneath what you're saying is you have to be aware of what's out there. And I think that's one of the things we're trying to do, right, here on the Genealogy Gems is to continually bring forward what are the new record sets? What are the new areas? What are some of the tech things that you could be doing or using Google to reach into the depths of the web? Isn't that a big part? Is they bring you to more awareness and an understanding of what the record collections are that are available?
Absolutely. Because, as genealogists today, our families, our ancestors, and not too many generations back, they're mobile people. They're likely not living or have lived, rather, in places that you are currently living. And so, there's that boundary of trying to figure out what's available 2,000 miles away across the United States. And so we, as genealogists, really rely on people like yourself and others who share what they know about data, records, collections coming online. Because we can't just hop in a car all the time and run to, at least for me, the California Archives or what have you. So having those resources available to put us in touch with the right collection online, and then, of course, when it's not online, learning about the collection and how to order microfilm or records directly from them. So it's very essential to a really good, strong portfolio that you use all of those resources. And your number one stop is the Internet, but nice to have places to go after that. And that's where we learn about it, is from things like this.
Exactly. And, that's why I always say, people say, oh, but not everything's on the Internet. And it's not. But the Internet's the tool, right? It's the place we start because there's so much. If you do your homework, again, kind of getting familiar with the archives, the repositories, the collections, then you go in armed, ready for success. You're not just walking in the door of an archive and find out, oh, they close in 30 minutes. And by the way, they don't have the collection that you're looking for.
Exactly.
So, yeah. So I assume that there's a lot of people who probably get their certification and are not intending to do consulting work or research professionally necessarily, but they just want that full-blown education, but also just the option to have that certification behind their name so that they could do that later if they wanted to.
Right. In fact, I was actually very surprised. I couldn't give you the numbers right off the top of my head, but I was surprised at how many people attempted their certification simply as a measuring stick, a way to determine where they were lacking in their own education and how to improve, and had no intentions of going professional per se, starting a business or consulting or what have you, but just for themselves as a way to, better themselves. And I just think that's really commendable.
Well, okay, so maybe there's a couple people out there listening who are thinking, I have been thinking about that. Walk us through. What was the general process to kind of jump into this?
Well, the process is the same for everyone, whether you're already a professional genealogist or whether you're just new. Once you have decided to become certified, you apply to the Board for Certification of Genealogists, and you can do that online. And they send you a packet of information, and then you're officially on the clock. If you've ever been to like a genealogy conference or a workshop, sometimes you'll see on the name tags, there'll be a ribbon there and it says on the clock. That's what it means. The clock is up in 1 year unless you ask for an extension. So the portfolio consists of 7 things. Number 1, you're going to sign a code of ethics. Number 2, which is a new requirement for 2016, is you're going to list your developmental activities. So that would be like your formal coursework or your enrichment activities that you've done. Then number 3 is a supplied document. They send you that. So in your application, you might say, I'm interested in doing Southern United States between the years of 1800 and 1900. And so they're going to provide you with a document that has to do with those Southern states within that time frame, so that you feel comfortable transcribing and abstracting a document from that time period. So I really liked the fact that they ask you what you wanted. And then you will create a genealogy research question and research plan with that document. And then you get to put your own document together from wherever and whatever you want. You will use your own supplied document and apply those same 5 things: transcription, abstraction, research question, analyze the data, and create a research plan. Then you will write a research report for another person, and that doesn't have to be client work. A lot of people were talking about being scared about that portion. I don't feel comfortable charging people for work. It doesn't have to be. It can be a friend. Could I do this research question for you? It's not necessary that you pay me, but it needs to be a report for another person, not for yourself. And then the 6th thing is to write a report using indirect or negative evidence. Oh, that one is dreadful, but that's okay. I'll be honest, I hate that one, but I'm working on it. And the very last thing is the kinship determination project. And, it's hilarious to me because most people hate that one. That's the one they hate the most. And I actually like that one. It is a narrative genealogy that covers at least 3 generations. And I don't know, maybe I like that because writing is my thing, and so that part seems a little more creative to me. But those are the 7 papers that are included in your portfolio.
So I know that there's a lot of great content over at the BCG website, and that's bcgcertification.org. And there are articles over there, examples, skill-building activities. Those are for free, so you can anybody can check that out, right? You don't have to be going through the formal process.
No, anyone can use that.
Yeah. Well, I can't wrap up here without finding out the really important thing is your family. I know you have a family. Yes. Share with the Genealogy Gems family about who your family is.
Well, we are a nice little farm family in Ohio, and that has been really a dream come true. My husband and I were childhood sweethearts, and we did grow up here in Ohio. Yeah, so we came back with our 3 children. We had been, he'd been prior military, and so we traveled quite a lot, moved quite a bit, but there was a period in time where we just decided, we want to go home. We want to go back to the farm. So we did, and we literally bought the farm 2 miles down the road from my home farm. So that's where we are, and we're right back here with all of my sisters and my parents and cousins and uncles and aunts, and it's just been wonderful. So I have 3 children, and they are almost 17, almost 15, and 9. And
you have to put the almost in there because they'll get on you if you don't put the almost.
That's right, because really, we're talking just weeks away. But they're all doing really well and enjoy their Ohio family here, but not quite as interested in family history as I would like. But, there's time to remedy that.
Oh, yeah. I'm living example. My daughter, Lacey, now, of course, as you know, you've met Lacey, is full-time doing this, and I don't think she ever thought that would happen. But
no, she's a mother's dream come true. She is.
Well, wonderful. We're so happy to have you as part of the team, and I know all of you listening, you're going to be hearing more from Amie in the months to come and reading. More importantly, you'll be reading her wonderful articles over at the Genealogy Gems blog. I'm really excited to see what you have coming down the pipeline.
Oh, thanks, Lisa. It's a pleasure.
All right. Well, thank you, Amie Tennant, and everybody, look for her on the blog. And Amie, we'll talk to you soon.
All right. Bye-bye.
Should tell you you're beautiful to me, would you just run away or climb the nearest tree? I long to tell you your lips look kissable. Would I be bold to say they're irresistible? Although it's forward to mention romance, if I don't speak 'em now, I haven't got a chance. If I said it all and put my heart on my sleeve, tell me, could you care for me?
If you've spent some time researching your family history, your discoveries probably look like old documents like census records and death certificates. Not exactly exciting stuff to your kids and your grandkids. And yet, they are the ones that you hope to pass your family history on to. The truth is that the non-genealogists in your family aren't all that captivated by the same things that you might be. But we're going to change all that today with a tech tool that will help you create fabulous, captivating video about your family history. It's called Animoto. It's super fast and incredibly easy, and no special skills are required. And I'm going to show you how in this step-by-step tutorial series. We're going to lay the groundwork for the story that you're going to tell in your video. In fact, you'll probably find that this step takes longer than actually creating the video. Laying a foundation up front will save you time and ensure a cohesive, well-told story. One of the easiest ways to do this is to define your audience and the story that you want to tell. So, are you going to show your video at the next family reunion? Consider telling a broad, high-level story that doesn't dig so much into the details and that includes lots of pictures of the folks who will be in attendance and their ancestors. Do you want to grab the attention of your grandkids? The key to video success with younger audiences is focusing on short, captivating, and most importantly, shareable videos. Kids want something cool that they can share with their cousins and friends on social sites like Facebook, Snapchat, and Instagram. So how about a video about great-grandpa who was a sheriff, or an ancestor who shares traits with your grandkids that they can identify with. Focusing your attention on your intended audience will help you draw them in and make it worth their while to watch your video. Don't bite off too much. Captivating, shareable videos aren't long. Typically, 3 to 5 minutes is ideal for grabbing and keeping attention, particularly online. So rather than telling the entire story of your family, how about featuring one generation, one town that they lived in, 1 year of their lives, one event? In other words, break it down into manageable, bite-sized pieces and a story that does not go in so many different directions that it becomes confusing to the viewer. And bear in mind that the genealogical documents themselves are rarely as riveting to non-genealogists as they are to genealogists. So focus on the story and use a document image to reinforce the story portrayed in the video rather than just being the star of the video. I like to create an outline, maybe just in a Word document or an Evernote note, and lay out what it is I'm going to cover in my video. That makes it easier to spot and look for the right kinds of imagery and videos to represent the story that I want to tell. And it also keeps me from rambling on and having it go too long, which gets boring. So we're going to keep this short and sweet. Remember, it's not always what you include, but what you leave out that helps make your video captivating. So keep the story in mind and look for a logical place to start and a logical place to stop. So you probably already have many images on your computer in a digital format, such as JPEG files. Look for photos and scanned images of documents, postcards, newspaper articles, and other ephemera to bring your story to life in a really visual way. And remember, you don't have to use an image straight from your family, and in some cases, you may not have an image. Representative images can also do the job. One of my favorite resources for historic images is the American Memory Project by the Library of Congress. Check it out at memory.loc.gov. Do keyword searches on the places and the events and the time frames. You'll come up with some great imagery that you can download. Create a folder on your hard drive. This is going to be where you're going to collect all your stuff and keep it organized. And name it something like Video Project Images. As you locate the images that you want to use, you're going to make copies and put them into this folder. It can help to rename them and maybe add a numbering system to the new names so that they appear in the folder in the order that you want them to appear in the video. You can also add your own video clips to your Animoto video if you're lucky enough to have perhaps some old home movies. So you might want to create a second folder for those, or you could just include them in your images folder and rename them so that they fall in order with your numbering system. So the first thing that you're going to do is to head to Animoto and sign up for an account. And you can find out more about Animoto at genealogygems.com/family-history-videos. Now that includes at least a 7-day free trial, which gives you the full power of Animoto Pro. There's no credit card required. And this trial period is the perfect opportunity to test drive Animoto and see just how easy it is to use. Don't just take my word for it. And as I've said before, if you can click, drag, and drop, you can make videos with Animoto. And if you decide that you want to use Animoto past the trial period, there are several pricing plan options. You can purchase as little as 1 month. That removes the watermark. And if you've done your prep work like we did, you can create several videos in just that time period. So once you're signed into your Animoto account, click the Create button. Now, first up, we're going to select a style that fits your story. I want to share with you some of my favorite styles for family history videos. There's Memory Box, Antique Bouquet, Remembrance, Vintage Voyage, and Rustic. These all have kind of that old world feel, but there are lots of other styles, and some of them really fun and upbeat. And you'll notice that some of the styles have a premium banner on them, and those do require a premium level subscription. But if you've opted for a personal level subscription, you still have lots of wonderful styles to choose from. So click on a style that catches your fancy, and you can watch a preview of what it's going to look like. When you find the one that you want, click the Create Video button on that style page, and that will load the video creator. Now, the style that you chose will include music, but you can change that if you want to. So to select a new song, click Change Song, and you can pick a song from the Animoto library. You can also upload your own music MP3 file from your computer. Just remember to keep copyright in mind and make sure that you have the rights to use the song. But you can add more than music as well. You could also upload an audio file. How about a family history interview? Or even an MP3 file that you have created in a separate program that has both words and music, if you're so inclined. Now it's time to add your photos, images, and video clips if you have them. And of course, that's easy to do because you created an outline for your story and you copied the files that you wanted to use to illustrate that story into a folder on your computer. So you are all set to go. There are two ways to add files to your project. From the menu, you can click Add Pics and Vids, or on the timeline, just click the plus sign in the empty box. In the pop-up window, you'll find lots of options for imagery, including stock photos from Animoto. But for now, let's add the images that you put into your project folder. So under Your Computer, click Upload Pictures and Video. Navigate your way to your content folder that's on your computer's hard drive, and click to select the first image. Now you can pull these all in at once. All you have to do is click to select the first image, and then select them all by holding down the Shift key on your keyboard and clicking the last image in the folder, thereby selecting all of them. Press Enter on your keyboard, and that will add them all to your project in one fell swoop. You can always rearrange the order of your images and your videos by dragging and dropping them with your mouse. But thanks to the work that you did up front, you probably won't have to do much of that because you already had them in an order that you liked. If you decide to eliminate an image, that's easy to do as well. Simply click to select it, and from the menu, click Delete. Next, we're going to add text to your videos, creating sort of title cards. Again, you can do this from the menu, or just click the plus sign in the empty box on the timeline. I like doing that. It's really easy. And then click Add Text. In the pop-up box, you'll type a title, or whatever the main text is going to be. And then you have the option to add a subtitle as well. This is where the outline that comes in so handy. You've already done a lot of this work. And when you're done, you just click Save. And don't worry, because you can always go back and change any text at any time if you change your mind. Title cards come in really handy for the beginning to kind of introduce your video. At the end, you can use it for credits or more information. And I also like using them throughout the video to transition between different parts of the story. Simply click and drag the cards into the order that you want them. You can also add text captions to each of your images. Now, if you have a particular image or a text card that you want to have the camera, so to speak, spend a little more time on, thereby kind of highlighting it or spotlighting it, just click to select that card. And then over in the menu, click on Spotlight. And you'll see that it kind of highlights around the card, indicating that it's going to spend a little more time on that particular piece. You can preview your video at any time during the production process. A low-resolution version will be created in about 15 seconds for you to review. And then you can watch and see what tweaks and changes that you want to make. Just click Continue Editing to head back to the timeline and keep working. Now it's time to fine-tune your video and produce it. You may notice when you preview your video that the timing needs a little adjustment because it might be moving a little too fast or too slow. You can fine-tune the speed at which the images are shown and the length of the song by clicking the gear icon. It's in the upper right corner of the editor. It's just above the images. In the pop-up window, you can trim the song and you can slide the lever to change the pace. When you're done, click Save and preview the video again to see the changes. Sometimes adding or subtracting images will also help perfect the pace. Also under Settings, make sure the title, your name, and the description are just the way you want them. You can also add what's called a call to action button at the end of your video, and you can link that button to any website, like your own genealogy website or blog. This is a fantastic way to keep your viewers involved in the family history. After making your edits and previewing your video one last time, you are ready to produce it. Simply click the Produce button, which will take you to the Produce Video page. On the sidebar, you can select the resolution size of your video, which can come in really handy if you want to stay within a certain size. Producing your video can take a few minutes, and it depends on the length of your video. But the good news is that Animoto will conveniently email you to notify you when it's ready. Your final produced video will appear on its own page where you can view it again, and you'll see another link along the side for video settings. Click that, and you'll find additional settings that can now be customized, such as privacy options. Then you're ready to share your video, and there are loads of options for that. You can share by email, Facebook, Twitter, sharing a link to the video, or posting it on YouTube. You can also post it on your own website by copying the embed code and pasting it into the source code of a web page on your own website. Click the More button and you'll find many more social media options for sharing your video. And of course, I highly recommend that you download a copy of the video as well to your own computer, and that's for permanent storage. Once your trial is over, you'll have to subscribe to Animoto if you wish to continue creating videos. And there are many options to choose from so that you can find the one that really fits your needs. For example, if you need to make only one or a couple of videos at a time, you could do all your planning ahead of time before making your purchase. And then you can purchase 1 month's personal use of Animoto. If you have several or ongoing projects, then purchasing the 1-year plan saves quite a bit of money month by month. Plans include unlimited high-definition video creation and sharing. Go to genealogygems.com/family-history-videos, and we'll have that link for you in the show notes. There you'll find all the information so that you can pick the one subscription that really meets your needs. You can create videos for weddings, birthdays, holidays, graduation parties, family reunions, retirement parties. How about a genealogy society event, your own genealogy website or blog, tutorials and classroom teaching, your Facebook page? The possibilities are absolutely endless. You're going to have a blast with Animoto. And I hope if you create your own Animoto video that you send me a link. I'd love to see what you're up to. You can also share it on our Facebook page at facebook.com/genealogygems. I'd love to see what you come up with. And remember, it doesn't have to be long, quick and captivating and shareable. That's what's really going to reach out to all of the people in your family, whether they're genealogists or not. Again, you can learn more about it and watch the videos step by step at genealogygems.com/family-history-videos.
So tell me, could you care for me? I've got to say it all and put my heart on my sleeve. So tell me, could you care for me?
Our sponsor for this episode is MyHeritage, which has over 70 million members worldwide. If you're serious about making connections in the country where your ancestors once lived, hands down, MyHeritage is the place that you want to be. Post your tree on MyHeritage and start to see the magic as they automatically match it up with other trees, not just with genealogists in the country where you live, but around the world. Trees aren't primary sources, but they are excellent leads. I uploaded a portion of my family tree that contains my German heritage, and that's where I was really hoping to make a breakthrough, and very quickly it happened. I received a message from a distant cousin in Germany. That was my first international cousin contact. But there's more at MyHeritage. Their unique and powerful search system, it's called Record Matches. It constantly culls over 5 billion historical records for your family. It's the only family history interface out there using semantic analysis to search newspaper articles, books, and other free text documents. It is also the first to translate names between languages. Find out what MyHeritage can do to help you grow your family tree. Visit myheritage.com. It's free to get started, so there's really no reason to wait. And there are billions of reasons to try it out. Visit myheritage.com.
Hello from Sunny Morton, Genealogy Gems contributing editor and book club guru. I'm here today with our much-anticipated interview with British novelist Helen Simonson. Her debut novel, Major Pettigrew's Last Stand, was a fabulous breakout. It's a New York Times bestseller that has now been translated and sold in 21 countries. Very recently, she released her second novel, The Summer Before the War, which is already getting great reviews and attention from her fans. Welcome to the show, Helen.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming on right on the tail of your book tour. That sounds exciting. You just got back from promoting The Summer Before the War. Where'd you go?
I've just spent 2 weeks on the road, crisscrossing the country. One day Southern California, the next day Canada. It's a bit like that old movie, if it's Tuesday, it must be Belgium. Very exciting, but it got to the point where at a front desk at a hotel they would say, "And which room are you in, Miss Simonson?" And I couldn't remember.
Oh my goodness.
So all very exciting, lots of signing books and speaking from the podium, a big sprinkling of fairy dust, but I must say I'm happy to be home.
I bet you are. And home for you now is?
Brooklyn, New York. I've actually lived in New York for some 30 years. Except for a couple of years living in Washington, D.C. So I am indeed British. I'm also an American citizen, and I probably get back to Sussex about once a year.
All right, in Sussex, we're going to talk more about in just a minute. We've been talking about The Summer Before the War on the Genealogy Gems podcast and blog now for 2 months. But for those who are coming in new to this conversation today, tell us briefly about The Summer Before the War.
The Summer Before the War is a love story of late Edwardian summer. A young teacher comes to town. She's been appointed to teach Latin at the local grammar school, and this is considered quite scandalous by the town. Her appointment has been pushed by progressive local matriarch Agatha Kent, who sort of runs things as best she can within the confines of society, and a very loving marriage. And Agatha has 2 wonderful nephews, Hugh, who's a rising young surgeon, and Daniel, who wants to go to Paris and be a poet. And so as these young people are just starting out on their lives and trying to figure out how to live and juggle things in this small town, of course, it's 1914, and so a horrific war is coming to sweep away their ambitions and perhaps replace those with something else.
Wow. So a storm is brewing.
A storm is definitely brewing.
So what about the setting? Why East Sussex to tell this story?
Well, when I was a teenager, my family achieved the British dream, which is a detached house in the country. And we moved down to rural Sussex, to the town of Rye. And coming from a modern suburb, I was suddenly dropped as an impressionable and romantic teenager into the middle of history. Rye is an ancient Cinque-Ports town. It's so old that the local inn, the Mermaid Inn, apologizes for being new. It has a sign on it that says rebuilt in 1450.
Oh, my goodness.
And it's also a literary haven. Henry James made his home there. His friend Edith Wharton would come down in her motor car to take him out for summer afternoons. Radcliffe Hall lived on the High Street. E.F. Benson lived there. Virginia Woolf and Rudyard Kipling were just down the way in West Sussex. So these were the local writers on whose books I spent my Saturday money growing up.
Wow, I can see why you'd fall in love with that particular place as a young writer yourself.
Oh, absolutely. And it's surrounded by the Romney Marshes, so plenty of green fields to put on one's wellies and stride about pretending to be Tess of the D'Urbervilles.
So, Beatrice Nash, she is a lovely hero. I really enjoyed her. One thing I like about her is that she's a step ahead of her times, for sure. That's sometimes hard for her, and it's often uncomfortable for those around her. So talk to us a little bit about that.
Yes, a young heroine. She's 23. She's educated. She basically has a university degree, though she probably doesn't actually have the degree because you could do the work and get a certificate. But as a woman, most institutions wouldn't actually admit you to the degree. She has a teaching certificate. And she's unusual in that she and her father have spent the last few years really traveling the world. He was an academic and a writer. And so her life has been traveling to an American university, living in a house in Venice. And everywhere they went, she essentially was her father's secretary and made all the arrangements. On his death, she finds herself returned to the family that had previously disowned him and expected to live as the poor spinster relation and hopefully to be married off. She very much rebels against this. Most of the young men she meets, she finds considerably less intelligent than her late father. And so she actually escapes this controlling family and is willing to take a step down socially to take up salaried work as a teacher in this far-off little town in Rye.
So how did you research the social context, really, of Beatrice's life? What attitudes and prejudices would have surrounded her specifically in that time and place, especially those class differences and the attitudes about women?
Yes, well, she's in a somewhat funny position. I don't think she realizes coming to Rye that she has a certain air of entitlement that comes with being, even if disowned, with still being a member of an aristocratic family and being her father's daughter. And she finds things are very different when she's suddenly a young woman on her own.
Okay. All right. Are any of these events or the circumstances in which Beatrice finds herself, are any of those inspired by perhaps real stories you've discovered?
Obviously, I did a lot of research into this time period, and in addition to original resources, read a lot of memoirs. Two that stand out would be Agatha Christie's autobiography and obviously Vera Britton's Testament of Youth. And I found both of those very exciting because while they were telling the stories of their lives, I was able to pull out little details that perhaps they would not have considered a priority in their stories. But, for example, Agatha Christie mentions being invited to dinner at a local house and how no young woman her age would dream of going to dinner without bringing her sheet music, because after dinner all unattached young women were expected to play the piano and sing. So doing a lot of reading about real people's lives, I felt that I was able to pull out a lot of useful detail, and I kept a lot of notes. To me, it's these tiny details that allow me to bring forward into the story. I feel I'm there, and therefore I'm sort of writing actually not a historic story. I feel like I'm writing a contemporary story because I feel like I'm in the room.
Well, it's time to wrap things up. And as I do just about every show, I wonder what particular little piece of the show that you are taking away with you into your genealogy life. Will you get up the courage to cold call a relative? Will you try that U.S. Public Records Index? Or sharing your files on Dropbox? Or will you share in an even bigger way by creating a family history video for your relatives with Animoto? Whatever you do, let me know how it goes. I love hearing from you with your own success stories and even with your research fails. If you have any of those and you want to share them or get some tips, get in touch with us. And you might notice that starting this month, our blog posts on Genealogy Gems have the ability to share comments. Thoughts and stories is there as well. So we definitely want to hear from you. And you can always email me at genealogygemspodcast@gmail.com. And particularly if you make a video about your family history, I would love it if you sent me a copy or a link to it in YouTube if you upload it, because every ancestor has a story. And we are their storytellers. Thanks to the Genealogy Gems podcast production team. I couldn't do this show without them. The content team includes Sunny Morton, contributing editor, with additional content by Lacey Cooke, Amie Tennant, and your DNA guide, Diane Southard. Vienna Thomas is the show's audio editor, and I'm your host and producer, Lisa Louise Cooke. So you can learn more about us at genealogygems.com. Thanks so much for listening, friend. I'll talk to you soon.